Alright everyone, I want to give you a sort of visual and geographic depiction of the areas that we will be studying to a greater or lesser extent in this course. And I want to do two things with this, not only to familiarize you with sort of the broad regional aspects of the geography, but also to point out to you how maps are not a simple, straightforward depiction of reality, but are, hopefully, if they are accurate, reflections of the points that the person who made the map wants to make, and oftentimes are not going to be perfect, or in fact far from it. So let's take a look here. Until the later part of this course, we are mostly going to be concerned with Southwest Asia, which is often referred to as the Middle East. We are going to be uh, looking at North Africa and West Africa. We're going to look at Central Asia. We're going to look at Byzantium and Eastern Europe. And of course, the core of the course, it being a Western civilization course, Western Europe. Now, each one of these we could go into a lot of detail on, talking about the different divisions and the diversity of political, economic, and social uh, organizations and patterns within these regions. Um, but the first thing I want to mention is that you can actually create several more regions than I put in here. The first one is simply that the Mediterranean, everything bounded by the Mediterranean, is itself a region, and this is in fact a very popular area of study. If you were ever to go on to graduate school, Mediterranean studies is a big thing because water connects, it does not divide. The same thing we could do up here, Western Europe. We could really look at the North Sea region, what I'm circling here with the cursor. We could also look at the Baltic region. This is also very popular. For Southwest Asia, which as you see is imprecise and also includes parts of Africa, Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, and ultimately all you could say down the as we get into the Indian Ocean world, down the East African coast, and all the way over to modern day Pakistan and India. We're looking at the Red Sea and Persian Gulf worlds, and the Arabian Sea connecting them. And this is a vast and complex and ancient network of uh, trade and commerce. We could also look at the Black Sea region. Again, water connects, it does not divide. As the river systems flow into the Black Sea and then from the Black Sea into the Mediterranean. This is actually why Troy, the city of Troy, had what fame and power it did because it sat right there and basically could levy taxes on all the trade coming into and out of the Black Sea region. So I gave you 5 circles here, but in reality, if we were going by bodies of water, we would look at very different circles. In fact, I should probably make a second slide to show this, to show that reality. And actually, a final thing would be to group everything along the North Atlantic coast here as one unit. A historian at Notre Dame does this. Notre Dame organizes it this way and looks at that as one single civilization. Okay, another thing to note about the circles on the map is that we are looking at the mere fact that I have placed circles here with these names on them is the end result of historical process. It is not the starting point of a historical process. Why group Byzantium and Eastern Europe, for example? The Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire, is a more accurate phrase, but most people know what you mean when you say Byzantine. Um, was not destined to be the main influence in Eastern Europe. That is how it worked out, as most Eastern European states, kingdoms, khanates, and principalities converted to Greek Orthodox Christianity. That was not a foregone conclusion at all in the early Middle Ages. And in fact, Poland, for a good while, was an outlier in Eastern European principalities in that it was neither Greek Orthodox nor non-Christian. It was Catholic, which was in Eastern Europe is somewhat unusual. since the Byzantine emperors had a lot more success in encouraging rivals and potential enemies to the north to convert to their form of Christianity. Western Europe, of course, um, is kind of a patchwork quilt. The main dividing line in early Western Europe you can't really even see, but in many ways it's the old Roman frontiers. There's the areas that were part of the Roman Empire, and then there's the areas that were officially on the other side of that line. Even though Roman influence extended well beyond the frontier forts, that dividing line has in many ways influenced subsequent centuries of developments and interactions and perceptions of who's in and who's out and who belongs and who doesn't. Central Asia, of course, is just a generic geographic term that hides a staggering variety of peoples, trade routes, cities, cultures, languages. In many respects, if this was a world history course, we'd be spending a lot more time on Central Asia than we would on Western Europe. Um, and of course, North and West Africa, I've grouped those two together, even though they really are very, very distinct. Um, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisian coasts, which is right up here, they are very distinct from the worlds of modern day Nigeria, Gambia, Senegal, and so on. Um, and we see different empires rising in these different areas. The Almoravids being probably one of the ones to actually try to exert a major influence into West Africa, but that's kind of getting ahead of our story here. And for those of you, finally, who have a keen eye and are gamers, you may recognize this map as being from Crusader Kings 2, which is really quite a darn good game. You know, it's a game, it's not a documentary, but if you want to get a grasp of what exactly it would take to run a county or a dukedom or a kingdom, it's you could do far worse than letting yourself explore this. You know, it's rather slow-paced but very rich in detail game. And actually, I believe it's actually free now on Steam uh, because they're coming out with Crusader Kings 3. And if you get the DSLs, you can play the Muslim principalities, you can play the Indian subcontinent, you can play Central Asia, Eastern Europe. You can go back to the Viking Age and so on. Okay, so hopefully this orients you geographically.